Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Transition Awareness Breathing Podcast. This is part 3 of our series with Mr. Nick Hendrix. Just as a review, we're talking about communication and the unvirtual communications that hurt. The research indicates that cursing is healthy and bring out honesty. Nick and I are challenging that research. In this series, we're sharing information about not just verbal communication, but our modern communication in a virtual world. Maybe it's time for an update. Maybe that research is old. We're going to be sharing real live case studies and the effect of those case studies. Maybe we should learn how to, instead of reacting, but responding and using our cursing as indicators for change. Here we go. How are you changing the model, updating your parenting to your family?
Oh boy, yeah. Well, I have 3 kids, as I mentioned before. I got a 14, almost 15-year-old daughter, 9-year-old daughter, 7-year-old son. I had the 2 daughters, and still to this day, I'm so lucky. They are so easy, excellent communicators, excellent listeners. They're thinkers, and I don't have a lot of problems with them. They're generally listening and learning all the time. Their emotions don't get in their way as much as maybe mine do or have in the past. But my son, my 7-year-old, very much like Dad. Very strong emotionally, very reactive. And so, that has been a learning experience for both of us. Because now suddenly I have this little tiny person who's got all the same baggage that I have. And I got to learn to teach him to carry it better than my dad taught me to carry it. Mm-hmm. And that at first, there were some missteps, right? Like when you have a kid, it's not like you can go get a degree in parent, right? Every single one of them is a brand new job, a brand new experience.
For sure.
And you can bring some insights, but they're all different people. And so, it took me a couple of years of frustration to kind of realize, for me to realize that I was going down that road, that my dad had brought me down. And it was so easy and natural because it's what I knew, right? It's what I didn't have to think about. Mm-hmm. But that isn't where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. One night I was in his room trying to get into bed. He was probably like 4, I think. And I was yelling and he was yelling and crying and I was upset. And I just thought to myself, what's the point of this? Why did I do this? And that was the moment that I decided, you know what? I'm going to stop and take that step back. Mm-hmm. Maybe, and I got want to talk to a therapist about it too, get some additional insights. Therapy is important, Don't ever feel like it's not. It doesn't matter who you are, what your problems are. It helps to talk to somebody without any baggage attached. Mm-hmm. I think that's the value in that.
Yeah.
It's like somebody, I don't know this person, so I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Because I know there's not going to be any blowback from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, pro tip. But that was the moment. It was just that being with my son and seeing that. And ever since then, I've been attempting to build a more positive environment for someone who has some of those challenges. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just trying to throw medication at him. If we can get around that, so far so good. And if we get to the point where he needs it, I'm not against it. But I'm just trying as early as possible to give him the tools that nobody gave me, to learn how to contend with these feelings that you get.
You're mentioning something, and for everyone, even if you don't have children, if you work around anybody, right?
Yes,
if you work around anybody, that self-reflection, I call that self-reflection, with my son, and a little bit with my daughter, but more with my son, because everybody learns differently.
Yes. And
I found myself raising my voice. This military man,
That's what you know. Right?
And in my household when I grew up, my parents didn't swear, but they had creative words. Okay. Like doggone it and
that's good.
things like that. They didn't swear, but it was the tone of the voice. That's what got it. It was the tone of the voice. And when my mother would talk very stern like this, then
you knew you were in for it.
Yeah. And so they didn't have to go too far other than that. But then in the military, you're raising your voice. And
and I first joined, I was like a soft spoken person, but I felt like I was yelling,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, you're
But
imposing your will on
exactly,
them, but that's a unique situation.
it
Military is
is.
not like the rest of the
Oh
world.
my goodness!
Yeah.
But you can't do that with your children.
No,
You
exactly right.
cannot do that with your children.
It's a good there and really nowhere else. Right. Yeah.
Exactly, and because he was yelling back, and I thought, what? He was doing exactly what I was doing,
Yeah.
and after a
I
while,
can't demote you.
right,
Right.
it's like even my husband and my daughter was like, "Mommy," and it's when you get that feedback, and
Yes.
it's like, "What am I doing? What am I doing? Yeah, what am I doing?"
Yeah.
He's 4, and so that was a big self-reflection thing, and reading and learning about all kinds of ways of communicating, um, reflecting to people who you trust, therapists, or
Yep.
for me, spiritual, and I remember I was at this class. It was a Jewish learning class. It was about parenting, and it was this cartoon. I
Uh-oh.
remember it was this cartoon. It was about this little boy, and he was doing things, he wasn't listening, and he accidentally broke the glass, and the mother went off, and the thing that came out of my mouth was, "That's me." Everybody stopped, and it's like I felt
I've felt
so
those exact feelings before. Yeah.
exactly, and so I think that was the self reflection moment, and I
And then
think
they probably thought for a second, you know what? Me too. They probably didn't say
for
it,
sure,
but
yeah, yeah. And since then, I knew I had to be better.
yeah,
It took a lot of work. It takes a lot of work,
absolutely.
and as they're growing into different stages, it still takes a lot of work. But they will mimic, because I think it's mimicking
Absolutely.
what you do.
What you are all they know
Yes,
about how to deal with the world.
yes.
Yeah.
When I have the children in transition awareness breathing class, it's so fun. There is a lot of excitement, and
Yes.
that's okay, because excitement is what a lot of times it triggers our energy and our
Yeah.
responses, and so I use that to help us learn different uh, calming skills and things like that. And sometimes it's easier than others, because sometimes people are tired and hungry and things like that. But I just want to you know add to helping those children's environment be positive, you
Yeah.
know, because at least because it takes time, at least they have some tools or a tool.
Exactly. They
eh,
have something to compare against at the
Some
very least. Yes.
exactly that there is a choice, you
And
know.
that's the same thing I do with Cub Scouts.
Okay.
I've got a demanding job and 3 kids. My wife runs her own business and all these things. And Cub Scouts is hard. It's hard to
Mm,
make that commitment, especially because we're leaders too. So my wife and I co-lead this year's second graders. So it's my son Everett's den. But it's the same thing. It's hard, right? Some days are easier than others,
yep.
but the goal is always the same, and it's what keeps me coming back, and it's
Yes.
giving them something positive,
And
right?
they now they know they have a choice, no matter
And
what. You don't know what goes on in their homes.
exactly, and sometimes it's not ideal situations, right?
Sure.
Some scouts one thing, some scouts another, but you are able to give all of them the idea that things can be positive in a group, right? I
Yeah.
can have relationships with people that don't make me feel so bad,
Yeah.
and that I think hopefully that's going to really give them what they need to succeed and overcome any sort of challenges that they have.
Exactly. What are there any closing words or lessons learned that you would like to
Sure. Well,
tell
what,
our listeners?
one thing I wanted to mention that's been very valuable for me in refining my communication is actually my professional life. I'm in corporate America, and how you communicate in corporate America is very sort of specific, right? There's certain standard norms for behavior and all that. And it took me a long time to learn that stuff.
Oh.
And it was the mistakes that I made and falling on my face
Mm.
that made me grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't quit when I made a big mistake. And that is so important. And I remember vividly the first meeting that I had initiated. Like I had scheduled the meeting and it was my topic on a big issue. People were going to be there. But my lead engineer was going to be there too, and I was just so used to him taking the reins whenever we were having a conversation. But those were his meetings, and it hadn't clicked. So there I showed up, everyone's waiting for me to start talking, expecting me to be prepared. I was not. I was working on another issue right up to the minute. I was expecting him to handle it. And boy, oh boy, did I get feedback from that. And it set me back a few months. It probably set me back a year on getting the promotion. But that's fine.
Yeah.
Because I came out of it stronger, and I have continued to climb nonetheless. Just I didn't let it destroy me.
Don't give up.
And that is so easy to do, is to just let that friction defeat you and go back to that mindset of just being angry with the world and not making progress.
Wow, that's a very powerful word. Don't give up.
Don't give up. Never.
Just don't give up.
Yeah. And unless it's hurting you or hurting someone around you,
Yeah.
don't give up.
Yeah, just keep trying.
Keep trying. Get up. Get back up. My middle daughter, she's very resilient. And one of the reasons she is resilient is because of Super Mario Brothers.
Oh.
When she was about, I guess, 6 or so, I think we got like the first Super Mario game that she played, and she just kept falling right off the edge, right? Running into a Koopa and dying, and she was getting so frustrated. And I told her, Vivian, every time you die, you come back better at the game. Every single time. So don't worry about dying.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get better.
Yeah.
And that lesson can be extended to everything.
Wow.
Because what we learn most from are the mistakes.
That's true. That is so true.
Are the things that feel wrong.
Right.
Because then you have the privilege of thinking why that feels wrong. Reflecting what happened and what could I do better.
Wow.
So,
thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Wow. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I hope you enjoyed our time together, and I look forward to talking to you again next time.
Thanks, everybody.